On November 14th, 1948, 6 days prior to his parents' first wedding anniversary, Prince Charles Philip Arthur George was born by a caesarean section at Buckingham Palace. It wasn't customary in those days for fathers to attend their children's births, so while the then 22-year-old Princess Elizabeth endured a 30-hour labour, her restless husband paced the length of an equerry's office before his private secretary suggested a game of squash. When told of his son's safe arrival, the Duke bounded up the stairs to meet his new baby boy, and in true Philip style, he reportedly said baby Charles looked like a plum pudding. Besotted with her newborn, Princess Elizabeth later wrote to a friend, "Don't you think he is quite adorable? I still can't believe he is really mine."
It has just been announced from Buckingham Palace that Her Royal Highness the Princess Elizabeth, Duchess of Edinburgh, was safely delivered of a prince at 9:14 p.m.
Sadly, the untimely death of her father in 1952 and her subsequent accession to the throne brought with it a swift end to the peaceful family life she'd created with her husband, son and daughter Princess Anne. Suddenly laden by constitutional obligations, she was rarely able to spend more than half an hour with her children before the day's engagements began. She returned home early evening to bathe them and put them to bed. Charles has spoken often of his unhappy childhood, softened only by the nurturing relationship he shared with his nanny Mabel Anderson. But, having assumed the throne in what was largely a male-dominated world, the demands on the newly installed figurehead were immense. There's no question the relationship between mother and son suffered as a result. Archived newsreel from 1951 shows a young Prince Charles accompanying his grandmother and aunt to Euston Station to greet his parents following their tour to Canada. As Princess Elizabeth steps off the train, she warmly embraces her mother before kissing the top of her son's head.
He wasn't supposed to go to Euston, but he got so excited at the thought of seeing his mother and father again that the Queen decided to take him.
The images are in stark contrast to those of the Prince and Princess of Wales, who raced up Britannia's gangplank for a joyful reunion with their sons in the midst of their own tour to Canada in 1991. Still, it's unfair to compare across the generational divide. In 1951, Princess Elizabeth was required to maintain the dignity expected of one in her position. 4 decades on, attitudes towards royalty had changed, and the public was delighted to be afforded a glimpse of the loving bond between parent and child. An endless source of curiosity, Charles's relationship with his mother was complicated, but it would be wrong to assume the two didn't get along. The Queen's early absence was due to the nature of her position, and not, as some have suggested, because she was lacking in maternal warmth. Given the demands on his time, both nationally and internationally, Charles has since come to understand the conflicts she faced. Granted, their interests were significantly different, as was their approach to their roles. Where Charles has long been known to walk a fine line in terms of several key issues, the Queen was constrained by what she could say. Behind the scenes, however, they enjoyed a similar sense of humour. Their shared commitment to the UK and the Commonwealth of Nations was unsurpassed, as was their dedication to the institution of monarchy and the traditions it upholds.
One day, the Prince of Wales should carry on the important work started by my father in 1949.
The Queen publicly expressed her pride in her son on multiple occasions, and there was never anything between them other than mutual love and respect.
Your Majesty, Mummy.
Born to a generation which didn't believe in overt displays of emotion, the Queen outwardly presented a more formal side, but delightful home movies shared over the years showed her laughing and playing with her children as any other parent would. In the latter years of her life, Charles admirably stepped up to relieve her of the duties that had become more arduous due to her age. In doing so, he ensured a smooth transition from mother to son. Walking behind Prince Philip's funeral cortege in 2021, Charles looked utterly destroyed. Now, as he grapples with the duties associated to kingship, the magnitude of his grief over his mother's loss should not be underestimated. Inheriting a job for which one is destined, but only because a parent has died, has always struck me as rather macabre. I suspect those in the line of succession find it equally hard to comprehend. Given the Queen's longevity, Charles is the oldest British heir ever to assume the throne, but the UK, along with the Commonwealth of Nations, will benefit from him being the most prepared. How the British public will respond to his coronation remains to be seen, but in this age of austerity, where deference is no more, some of the archaic customs and traditions may be viewed as out of touch. There is, however, one certainty. Charles's anointing, one of the holiest of rituals, will follow the age-old ceremony set by a long line of kings and queens before him. Still, he may choose to modernize certain elements of the service. Reflecting today's society, it's possible he'll opt to declare himself not only defender of the faith, but defender of the faith and other faiths. After all, the monarchy's ability to adapt and evolve is one of the key reasons it continues to exist. Prince Charles was present for his mother's crowning in 1953. Aged only 4, he viewed the 3-hour spectacle from his seat between his grandmother and aunt in the royal box. His own coronation will come late in life, but as St Edward's crown, made for Charles II in 1661, is placed upon his head, he'll become Britain's 41st sovereign. The future of the monarchy will, for a short time, be entrusted to his newly anointed hands.